Hello to you all, and welcome to Pyramid Energy. You may or may not have seen the recent exchange around the handover of the G20 presidency. Rather than diving into the factual narratives around it, I'm exploring the energetic undertones and relational dynamics I'm perceiving through these events and exchanges playing out on the world stage. This is not political commentary, and I'm not approaching this as a political analyst. I'm doing it all intuitively, and I'm speaking from curiosity, observation, and energetic perception, sharing impressions and subtle patterns that I'm sensing. I think it's worth saying that there's how the world is reported and how the world is felt. I'm exploring the latter. Intuitive perception isn't factual in the conventional sense. It's interpretive, symbolic, and often arrives ahead of linear explanation. I haven't researched any statistics or analyzed policy papers. My process here wasn't intellectual, it was intuitive. So it's possible that some of what I say echoes what others have already noted, and if so, that simply means multiple perspectives are converging. But I personally feel a shift happening now, and I wanted to explore what might be moving beneath the surface. So you're free to disagree, interpret differently, or simply take what resonates and leave the rest. That openness has always existed on this channel. And so, bringing in geopolitical themes doesn't change that. Again, I'm not predicting outcomes, and I'm not positioning these reflections as definitive. I'm reading energetic patterns and speaking as someone curious about the deeper movements occurring within human consciousness and global direction. Movements that ultimately affect all of us. And so I invite you to enjoy my exploration with me. First of all, I think that this is going to be interesting, whatever comes out of this. And I know this because of my curiosity. Usually when something sparks interest, it can fizzle out. But this one has more. The first thing I've seen in my vision before we jump into all of this, a whole page of parallel lines laid out horizontally. Sort of as I tuned in, I realized this was a piece of paper almost taken from an exercise book, but blank. I also saw like someone almost scribbling a big signature, like an initial or something over this, but that ink was not actually permanent. It wasn't on the piece of paper. And what this has made me think about was, before I came here, all I have that's written is Trump's statement that he posted on Truth Social, regarding this matter. I wanted to approach this reading looking into that. But first I wanted to see what is it exactly that Ramaphosa said, or Vincent Mangwenya, the spokesperson for the presidency. I wanted his wording, like verbatim. But through checking in online and through ChatGPT, what came out was that everything that's been shared publicly has been interpreted by media or whatever it is. There is no actual statement saying that Ramaphosa refuses to hand over the gavel to Trump or his presidency. This may seem like it's completely off topic, but I looked out the window and literally saw a whole lot of white butterflies flying around, more than I can count. Butterflies point to transformation, and white very much speaks about clarity, And so what's actually taking place right now is going to reveal clarity. All these various parties are about to gain clarity on, I almost want to say, the direction in which they're going, their priorities, where they stand on matters. Sometimes this happens, often it happens, where it's very unclear where parties stand when parties are dealing with each other, where the various parties stand. And so as there are negotiations taking place and even disagreements and disputes it can be hard to tell who is aligned with your voice and who is not. In this case, there's going to be a lot more clarity because essentially what has happened here is that it is unclear where all of these various parties that form the G20 stand on, let's say, the US's behavior or Trump's behavior, let's rather say that. And this particular event is bringing balance into the picture by calling various parties to decide where they stand. Okay, so this might have been blurry before, something that wasn't clear, like almost, how do I put this? Let's say, before a party needs to take a stand, they may not even know where they stand. Okay, and so now that is changing because of what's happening right now. That page of lines, firstly, all those parallel lines, the horizontal ones, they point to this dynamic being multi-layered. Okay, lots of layers, lots of dynamics at play. This is obvious. But then this page this piece of paper with the lines on it, it suggests that the matter is not confirmed, it hasn't been written, but this invisible ink, this signature, says that there are agreements in the background. Okay, there's an agreement that's already signed in the background that not everyone is privy to. And I just want to go back to the fact that, well, I'm saying it's a fact because I tried to find this information. There's nothing in writing where Ramaphosa refused. Okay, all interpreted. I'm not saying it was not said, but I'm saying at this point, this is all a verbal disagreement. And Trump hasn't actually sent anything official. He's just posted on his social media. Something else that's worth mentioning, and, this came up for me intuitively and it's feeling relevant here, is that just after I heard that Ramaphosa has refused to hand over this gavel to a junior rep, I got the sense that he's chatted to people about this. He didn't just have like an ego moment where he was, knee-jerk reaction, I'm not doing that if you do this. It wasn't like that. He actually caucused with his people. And something else that I have become aware of is if you look at the G20, and I'm not familiar with all this stuff, I just have an interest in politics and I look at it the way I look at it, okay? The thing that struck me here about the G20, and given that BRICS exists, is that even though within these various blocks, there may be areas where they aren't fully aligned because of their personal interests, let's call it. But the point for me is that a lot of these Western blocs, they fight openly, they argue openly, and they're clearly not aligned. Whereas BRICS is very, they keep their public image clear. And I'm referring to none of them going rogue on each other. And so Ramaphosa wouldn't just go rogue on BRICS by behaving this way, responding this way to Trump on this matter. He checked, okay? And, as much as this came up intuitively for me, it wasn't just that. It was also because, the difference between his attitude on this matter, on the gavel, let's call it, and how I felt things went down when he went to the White House, chalk and cheese. Like two different people, two different egos. It just, for me, was not consistent. And so that's what tipped me off, that he's talked to others about this. Okay? And so Trump's spat is a bit interesting for me because that is definitely a knee-jerk reaction. But he's literally, for me, behaving like a dog with a bone when it comes to all of these, what do you call them? Misallegations about genocide in South Africa. White genocide, Afrikaner genocide. I don't know what we're calling it. But essentially, that's why I'm here, because we've had, a significant group of South African Afrikaners who have confirmed, okay, on our behalf, I suppose, as a country, that all of this is not true and it's based on, it's misinformation. And so why would Trump keep using this as sort of like his flag to get attention? Like, why, when everyone in the room is aware of the truth now, why are we still very obviously gaslighting each other? Why are we doing that? So I'm trying to figure out actually what is behind all of this. What is his motive? What is he getting at? Because it's more than just, not even that. It's got absolutely nothing to do with the people he says he's worried about. And I'm also interested in what's going to come out of this, because essentially whether he's allowed to make a call like this, that South Africa is not invited to the party, whether this is, whether he has the authority to do this or not, I actually don't think at this point that that's the point, because he tends to do what he feels like. I'm interested in how everyone else is going to react to this, because this is going to, this little argument, okay, that he is trying to start involves a significant group of people, many of them, the entire world, basically. Okay. So now he's asking the entire world to back his spat against little bitty South Africa. Okay. And I'm not saying that seriously. I'm saying it completely in jest, because I think South Africa, Africa, we have completely underestimated ourselves. I truly believe in our strength, the power we hold in terms of leading this continent into its sense of authority, which is its rightful place, at least as sovereign. Okay. The resources that are exploited from this continent, we have been gaslit forever. I hope I don't lose anyone here on focus, but I want to talk a little bit about just the principles around masculine and feminine and how they interact, especially we're now in 2025 at the end of it, and there's so many gender-related discussions happening around how women are in their power, and it's very difficult to tell what the role of a masculine is. There's all these conversations taking place. But essentially, when we talk about masculine and feminine, as far as energy is concerned, masculine is around order and structure and provision and rules and things like that and action, okay? And feminine is more around, a woman reproduces, expands, more flexible, and is more the receiver, okay, rather than the protector and the decider of how things are going to be done. When I think about this, okay, Africa with its resources is sort of playing the role of the feminine here, okay, and feminine role can very much and easily tend to be a victim of abuse via structure, order, and action, okay, and so while we aren't seeing ourselves as a structure in the world that actually matters and that has authority, okay, while we're not seeing the masculine parts of ourselves and healed in a healthy way and finding ourselves feeling protected and finding ourselves feeling like our system is healthy, it can reproduce, all of that, okay, while we are feeling wounded, this kind of narrative is exactly what the toxic is exactly how the toxic masculine keeps and maintains its power. Okay. It maintains its power through narrative and through controlling how you see yourself. That is exactly how it operates. So I'm moving completely away from how it works between a man and a woman. Okay. These energies play out similarly globally. Okay. In terms of how the world works. And especially of late, there's been so much disruption, okay? The masculine structures are fracturing because the earth is just not coping, essentially. We're having all these different discussions around climate change and, global policy, all these things. And Africa is starting to use its voice, okay? There's still a long way to go. But these kinds of events tend to reorder structures and systems and how they operate and how they relate to each other. And so I am saying that this event is not insignificant, it's significant, but I'm not saying that it is going to be the event that changes everything. I'm not necessarily saying that, okay? I want to just tap in a bit more. What I am saying is that it definitely points to a direction that is being taken, a stance that is forming, okay? That does not go according to the stance that was previously held, even if that previous stance seemed scattered. Okay, there is a view that is building. I mean, even if you look at his reaction, okay, he's talking about stuff that we've all discussed as not true. Okay, we've covered that topic. We're done. He's still on it because somehow it serves him. Okay. He says, South Africa has demonstrated to the world they are not a country worthy of membership anywhere. Okay, so that is trying to break down our personal sense of value. Okay, that's typical narcissistic behavior. And we're going to stop all payments and subsidies to them effective immediately. Okay, so I'm going to cut off your resources because I'm the boss. For me, I completely see the discussion that is sometimes heard around, when we talk about standing up to the big guy, the bossy guy. Okay, I understand that as a small country, in inverted commas, okay, that it's important to know your place. I get that. But when you hear it this way, you're actually able to see that it's a very fear-based type of control. When it comes to these fear-based types of control, another thing that's worth recognizing is that value in itself is perceived, okay? The energy production is very difficult to place value on, okay? People place numbers on it and all of that, but let's look at it this way. The US can perpetuate a narrative that makes Africa feel like it holds no value. It can make us feel like we hold no value. But actually, based on our position and based on what is produced on the land itself, that matter of value is only open because we have not felt, understood, and let me say, felt in control of what that value is, to the point where we actually don't recognize that value in our negotiations, in our stance. Power means nothing without resource. Okay, without correct positioning and resource, it means nothing. And so, in a sense, the one who makes you feel like you're worthless, the one who makes you feel like you rely on them to have worth, is actually the worthless one should you, let's say, begin to behave like you know your value, okay? Because like you basically take your place of authority. And so it looks like, this money that he's cutting off from sending to Pretoria, it looks like this is really bad. And I'm not saying it's good at all. I'm saying it is not a good thing. But that's only because we're in survival mode. And that's only because we're just trying to get this money now. In a sense, what I'm saying is that we're reacting, or we tend to react out of fear, actually because we're buying time. We're buying time to rearrange ourselves the way we think. We are not negotiating for money now. We are negotiating for time. Because if you were to remove time as a factor here and we were to reorder how we see things, okay, how we manage our own affairs internally, okay, how we negotiate on the behalf of our resources, that money would not actually mean anything. And I'm saying that that power is performed. It's not real. And this is an important thing to understand, I believe, because the more power he's given, the more his voice and the way he's behaving, the more power that's given, the less power that means the rest of the world has. This is not just about South Africa. And so for me, this is one of those moments where we all have to sit and decide, are we going to nip this in the bud, or are we going to feed this monster? I'm now moving into looking at what are his real reasons for behaving the way he's behaving. And what I saw is almost like a daisy, a flower, but this flower keeps sprouting another flower out of it. And the previous flower sort of fades into the background, and then another one sprouts, and another one, and another one, okay? But then I see almost the hand of Trump, like creating, sort of drawing a circle around this daisy, okay, almost to contain it, almost outlining the area around it, trying to contain it, and then beginning to pick a petal off at a time. Each petal, he's picking each petal off at a time. When I look into this and read into it, what I'm seeing is the flower representing sort of a beauty. The picking of the petal is almost like a depreciation of that beauty, but not a destruction of the actual flower. Okay. And the containment is to preserve the ability of this flower to continue to bloom so that he can continue to pick away at these petals. And the containment is also around perceived ownership over this flower production system. So it's very important to him that the value is not perceived to be growing. It's very important to him that the beauty and the ability to replenish itself that Africa has needs to be contained. And so the perception that Africa has of itself needs containment. This is bringing up a sense of control, exploitation. You know, none of the things I'm saying are like shock, horror, surprise. But it's confirming it for me, at least. What I'm seeing now is like a gate, like a normal residential gate, being opened and closed, opened and closed via remote control. What this suggests is access. It feels like access that's being opened and closed via this remote that he controls, as if to always remind you that you're an outsider and that only he allows you in at his discretion. This is a form of mental isolation that only survives through that need for validation, that need to be included, okay, that need to feel valid. Because for as long as you don't feel valid, you're obviously not seeing your value, okay? And I just want to mention again that in that sense, it's as if he controls the time through which this continent has the ability to sort of reorganize itself, okay, see itself differently, and reorganize itself, because that's actually what needs to happen, is that we need to just get organized. I also saw a duck quacking. It became quite noisy. It was one duck, literally like Daffy Duck, something like that, where the mouth, if that's what we call it, is the biggest, like the most visible. You can almost not see the duck through the noise and the size of its mouth and just the sound of the quacking. I looked up duck quacking and its symbolism, and it says it relates to communication for survival. Okay, this is very important because he's actually behaving this way out of survival. Okay, representing mating and territorial defense in the natural world. Okay. So this is about territorial defense. He's defending his territory. Okay. And he is making a noise in order to remain relevant and to survive. There seems to be an understanding, okay, within this mind of his, that without control of Africa or this flower, his survival is at threat. Okay, and when I say his survival, let's talk about this in the sense of whatever it is he's protecting, whoever he represents. I'm just very mindful of remaining with, like, as I speak, keeping reference on him and his name rather than the country that he represents, because people are often not really taken into account in matters like this. The next thing I'm seeing is waves. Not hectic waves, just waves. I looked it up and it says waves symbolize movement, change, and cycles in life. Okay. And I also saw like little people walking like through these waves, which is weird. But what I'm sensing here is, even though these waves are being created, there is going to be change. There is going to be movement. Okay. But that the people will be fine. I actually do not know what that means. Okay. Because in a world where we rely so much on money to feel like we can survive, it feels a bit confusing to me on how, but I believe that this is a matter of trust. Okay. I believe that it is. It's as if it's saying that this is part of the cycles of life, and almost like to not succumb out of fear of being bullied. And I'm seeing a sword, which is about truth. And so this is really around staying true, because as long as you stay true, you'll be fine. As I said those words, it's like I got clarity, and this is to say, okay, there's no guarantee that changes do not hurt people and leave people in suffering. That's not what's being said. But it is very, very clear here, at least through my vision and what I'm understanding, that when you stay true, okay, that means you are not beginning to lie to yourself now. Okay. So to understand what is true, that gives you a better chance for yourself. That's your best chance. Because once you start to lie on someone else's behalf, that's essentially what it is when you believe someone else's lies. You're starting to perpetuate their lie through your behavior, through agreeing, through your actions. You're basically agreeing to their false narrative. And so you're helping them do what they want to achieve. Okay. That puts you in a worse position. And so essentially you'll be in a way better position and moving in a way better direction if you stay true. I tuned out of Trump a little bit here and wanted to, before I close, come back to Ramaphosa on, what is going on. And immediately in my vision, I saw a brain. Which suggests that he is thinking, which sounds weird for me to say. Okay, no disrespect intended. I'm just literally sharing what I'm seeing. Okay, I'm obliged to once I'm like here. But it's as if light bulb. He started thinking. A lot of the global strategy, I have no way to confirm this to you, so just listen for entertainment or whatever. It's as if global strategy led by like the mind actually considering a lot of these dynamics at play was not taking place fully before. It's a bit, I got like a cloud. I just saw like a cloud. It's as if something has entered his, I don't want to say existence. Something's shifted for him. It's hard to say what. I saw upward arrows. Upward arrows, immediately when I saw the first arrow, it wasn't so much about direction as it was about like a bow and arrow, that kind of arrow. And it suggests targeting and its upward movement of these arrows. Okay, their upward movement is suggesting upward action, a decision to move upwards, to ascend. And so this is not about growth, it's about ascension because it's an upward arrow. It's like he's decided on a direction and he started to strategize and to act accordingly. I'm hearing that this is due to outside influences, and that for me immediately is pointing to sort of a BRICS point of view. It's pointing to the people that actually need him to stand up for himself. Okay, on our behalf, we need you to stand up now. That's how it sounds. And so a lot of behavior currently is very much strategically led. You know, this sounds very silly for me to say something like this, for me to say, you know, he's thinking and he's being strategic. But what it's suggesting is that he's actually getting the confidence and the encouragement and almost pressure as well to align actions with strategy. Okay. And so to not actually come forward and behave as a small South Africa, but as a big player, as a part of a bigger picture, which was not fully clear, and in his view and in his perspective, the importance of his positioning and his behavior was not completely on his radar. And so this, what I'm saying by saying this is that a lot of previous behavior, former behavior, was based on that sense of value, okay, and that sense of power. He's feeling more powerful than before. And he is starting to understand how power grows through thinking. And when I say thinking, I'm not talking about the thought process. I'm talking about strategy, perception, behavior, actions. So everything we've been talking about, it's as if he's switched on now, okay, through the assistance of external parties and through their, not just encouragement, support. He is able to perceive the power of his voice better. And so Ramaphosa is not shaken by this tweet, if we could call it that. It's not even on X, it's on Trump's personal social media that he owns, okay? And I heard power games and I heard Hunger Games. I actually forgot what the Hunger Games is about. It says the central plot revolves around the annual Hunger Games, where tributes fight in a televised battle to the death. The narrative focuses on the struggle for survival against both the other contestants and the oppressive capital. I need to close this here. This has been very interesting for me, at least. I've never actually sat down like this to work through the energy, and I'm glad I did, because my personal intuition is confirmed. And I think that it's interesting to look at things this way. If you've listened to this far, I'm interested to hear your thoughts. And if anything came up for you as you were listening to the various visions and interpretations that I shared and views, you know. Again, none of this is based on fact. We call it entertainment. But I think it's worth thinking about. It is a good thing to know and understand what is happening in the mind of your captor.